One of the fascinating aspects of reading the Old Testament is you're going to see so much connected to the New Testament. And always keep this one thing in mind. And that is whenever you're listening to Jesus, Jesus is speaking with the full knowledge of all the universe, but obviously the full knowledge of the Scriptures. But Paul is too, because remember, Paul was a Pharisee, so he had studied the Scriptures well. Now, remember, in today's story, we have a connection in the gospel to today's story, so we want to look at that and see this powerful connection. And strangely enough, the connection we have to the gospel story is not the connection. There is no connection between the actual gospel we're reading today and the story we have in the Old Testament. But here we're looking at the widow of Zarepheth. And here she is encountering Elijah. Now remember, Elijah was the greatest prophet in the Old Testament. And always keep in mind that when you're dealing with Elijah, you're dealing with one of the two people who were with Jesus on the Transfiguration, not including the apostles, of course, because you have Elijah and you have Moses. Moses was the great prophet, the great lawgiver, the one from whom we have the Mosaic law, but Elijah was also the great powerful prophet of theophany. And both of them, and never forget this, both of them came to parts of or places in their ministry where they begged the Lord to take their life. Both of them did. It actually wasn't uncommon among the prophets. But both of them came to a point where they were, especially in the case of Moses, just absolutely frustrated with the ministry. And as in the case of Elijah, just felt that he had failed God. Both of them had come to this point because both of them were very human. So we can look at Elijah as this powerful miracle worker in the Old Testament, but we have to remember he was, above all things, another human being, and he was very brash, he was very powerful, he was very intense, but he also had his part where he said, "Kill me now, might as well, I'm no better than my ancestors." So we see this powerful story. Now, what's going on today? Well, there's a great, drought. There's a great drought. Now, why is there a great drought? It's part of the effect of Ahab building creating the Asherah, which is actually wasn't building because they're not that big. The Asherah, which was the small figurine that was in celebration of the goddess Asherah. It was these little figurines. So God, seeing that the king of Israel is practicing idolatry, doesn't like it. As we all know, that is the worst sin in the Old Testament. Therefore, he punishes Ahab and the land by causing a great drought. So Elijah is told by God to go out to Zarepheth. And when he's out there, he meets a widow. And the widow is there. She's collecting sticks. And he asks her for a cup of water. Why is that important? Remember what Jesus said. He said, if you give a prophet a cup of water because he is a prophet, you will not go without your reward. I forget the exact phrase he uses, but it's basically that. So this is one of the things he's drawing on. She gives a prophet a cup of water because he is a prophet. And she gives it to him, but then he asks for bread. And she says, well, I can't give you any bread because I don't have anything to make bread with. And he said, because you gave me this cup of water, you will never be without flour and oil in order to make bread. And there it is. So she is rewarded during this drought. Remember, it is she that is rewarded. Remember when Jesus is speaking to his home synagogue, and he pulls out the scrolls, and he says to the people, you may be saying, now, prophet, do your work here. And he says, remember, a prophet is without honor in his home territory. And then he brings up the widow Zarepheth, and he also brings up the case of Naaman the Syrian. It was a different story. I think we talked about him earlier in the year. So he says, here you're going to ask me to do miracles, but remember, the widow Zarepheth wasn't Jewish. At this point, we would call her is from Israel. She was a Gentile, and also Naaman was a Gentile. But it is to them that the Lord touched their hearts, because through Elijah, it was she who received that blessing from Elijah, and it was Naaman who received that blessing from Elisha. So we see this whole connection coming through here. And what's happening here is this powerful miracle that goes on because Elijah is a prophet of the Lord. Now, something to keep in mind, which we will talk about a lot when we're talking about the prophets in the Old Testament. Remember this. You can look at how powerful Elijah is, and you can look at him as a powerful prophet. But remember, St. John of the Cross, was it St. John of the Cross? No, I'm sorry. St. John Chrysostom said that you have a greater job. I'm talking to you. Who, me? I'm listening to this. Me? Yes, you. You, at your baptism, were given a greater role than the prophets. That includes Elijah in the Old Testament. Why? Because they were called to preach to their own people, which in this case would be Israel. You, that's you I'm talking to. You see my finger pointing at you as you're looking at this, at the podcast thing? You're looking at your, whatever you're hearing a podcast through, your Alexa, what do you call it? We'll call it Alexa. Or your little speaker, or whatever the case may be, your Echo, Amazon Echo. What is it you're looking at? You, I'm pointing to you. And you have a greater role than the prophets, because your role is to preach to the whole world by the way you live and by the way you act, or however the Lord is calling you. That's what St. John Chrysostom says. So we see the powerful prophet here who spoke powerfully, who acted powerfully, doing what the Lord has asked him to do. And part of what is going on here is the Lord has used him to speak as an agent to the king and saying, look, you're going to have a drought now because you were worshiping the Asherah. Now, why would there be a drought? Well, the answer is simple. What does a drought do? It causes there to be no water. The plants need water to survive, so therefore the crops die. Who was the god to whom Ahab the king worshipped? The god of fertility, the one who would produce the greatest of prophets. He prayed to the one who would produce the greatest of prophets, but because the Lord had to show him that he was more powerful than this God who was nothing but stone to begin with, and so because he prayed to the God of fertility, there was no fertility. You think, if you look at it the other way around, if all of a sudden the Lord said, no, what are you praying to Asherah for? I'll make everything fertile, and everything was fertile, it wouldn't have connected well with the king. I mean, he would have said, well, if you really think about it, we don't know whether it was God or Asherah who did that. This is God saying, I'm going to tell you who's doing this, me. And I'm making sure you understand that when you pray to the God of fertility, nothing happens. You don't get fertility because you prayed to the God of fertility instead of trusting in me. And that's a powerful thing to look at. that trusting in the Lord. Whenever you find yourself not trusting in the Lord, kind of look at that. And because what happens if you don't trust the Lord, as we see in Ahab, you're going to look somewhere else. You may go somewhere else. You may decide that whatever it is isn't working, or maybe you're going to decide that your religion isn't working, that you're not believing in God anymore. Whatever the case may be, that's why if you bring everything to the Lord and ask him for your assistance, you can trust in that assistance, not necessarily what you expect. You can trust in that assistance, but you're staying with the Lord. And that's a powerful truth. And that staying with the Lord, especially if things don't work out exactly as you expected, but you still stay with the Lord, that'll build your faith. And that's what the Lord wants to do, because he's leading Ahab away from the understanding that he can worship any god he chooses and he gets whatever he wants. No. So there is a drought because Ahab went to the wrong place looking for the fertility in his crops and discovered you don't do that behind the Lord. We're going to talk more on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. We're here every single Monday through Friday, and don't forget to subscribe, to pass the word, to let people know, and where to find us, and leave comments. We're going to be right back right after this on the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. I want to call your attention to Catholic TV, which offers great faith-filled, family-friendly programming 24 hours a day. You can find your cable channel at www.getcatholictv.com, and you can watch online on the free apps or check out the YouTube channel. Daily Mass, Rosaries, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and the Our Lady of Perpetual Help Novena are all available online and on demand. Check out CatholicTV.com. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts, previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com, your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. We're back, and we're going to talk more about the encyclical today. But one thing I just want to let you know is that we have an upcoming program with Father Larry Phillips of Boston College, and we're going to talk about the entire encyclical in one program. And so this should be a great discussion. At least I will have. And if you have any questions or comments and you'd like to send them to me, feel free to do that. Remember, my email address is producer@catholicaudiomedia.com, producer@catholicaudiomedia.com. You can also contact me through Catholic Audio Media. Just go to where it contact. You can contact me there, catholicaudiomedia.com, where you can also hear the program. But if you have any questions or any comments or anything you'd like me to cover, I was looking at YouTube and someone left a comment, and it was someone who didn't like the video, who didn't like baby boomers either. Too bad. But anyway, he didn't like baby boomers. So one of the things he said, "Oh, this is typical lame boomer stuff," or something like that. And I said, well, I responded to him, why don't you tell me what you'd want me to cover? Now, as I'm recording this, he hasn't responded yet, which I wouldn't be surprised. But that's one of the things. Well, tell me what you'd want me to cover. You know, if let me know what you think is important. But in any case, let's go over to the encyclical. We're over in paragraph 25. And there's something this is a profound statement. This is an absolutely profound statement. And now we're really getting into that tension between Pope Leo the 13th, the penultimate Pope Leo, and those who told him not to write Rerum Novarum. Because they said, no, we should be focused on the things of God. We shouldn't be focused on the things in the world. And he says, no, the church has to get involved in the things of the world, which is why it's really important for you to get involved in political realities. If you are a Catholic and you are a true believer, I hate to use that term because that has another connotation, but if you're a person who truly believes in our Catholic faith, truly, the term, which I'm not using in that context, the true believer is someone who is naive and believes everything in such a way they don't get to see reality around them. But what I'm saying to you is if you truly believe in the Catholic faith and what we have to share, definitely be involved in your local politics. This is important. And not to do in your local politics what they tell you on TV. Just because your favorite TV network says this is the way you have to think, this shouldn't be the way you have to think. The author, and I can't remember his name, but the author of the Spencer novel series, Spencer the Detective, it was a TV series back in the 80s and 90s. And Robert Ulrich, who has since passed away, was the star. They interviewed him on one of the national public radio programs, and he said, people read the Boston Globe for the Boston Globe to tell them how to think. That's exactly why I don't read the Boston Globe, one of the many reasons. But no, you shouldn't be acting on what the media tells you to do. You should be acting on what your own mind and your own faith and your own everything tells you what to do, which is why it's so important to go through this encyclical. So in all that, what I'd encourage you to do is to get involved. Take your faith. Let it get you involved in politics and get you involved in ideas. And we're going to look at one reason why this is important. This is what he says. This is chapter 20 or paragraph 25. Understanding that the truth is a gift to be shared, not a possession to be monopolized. There were people in the 1800s that would scream if they heard this. Frees the church from the temptation of seeking forms of presence based on power. We're not about power. In order to rediscover the evangelical means gospel. It doesn't mean the non-Catholic Christians. It means gospel. The evangelical approach of a gentle proclamation of truth that is not imposed. We are the church. You will do what I say. St. John Paul II invited us to examine honestly the times when acquiescence was given to intolerance and even the use of violence in the search of truth. Has anyone ever heard of the Inquisition? He didn't write that sentence. I'm adding that. That's what he's talking about. Oh, well, that's okay. This is one of the reasons. Here it is. This is one of the reasons why many Catholics, following the lesson of Pope Francis and Pope John Paul II, do not believe in the death penalty. Let me tell you that right now. For all you guys out there, we have to support the death penalty because they supported the death penalty in the 16th century. Well, they also supported leeching then, too. In the same vein, I, too, have reaffirmed that the church does not claim to possess a monopoly on truth. There are people from the past that would do a coffee spit moment with that sentence. That's a very profound statement there. With that sentence, that would be a coffee spit moment. I think of what was it? Was it Airplane? Had the coffee spit moment. That would be a coffee spit moment right then and there. They would go, what? This is powerful. This is true. We don't possess a monopoly on truth. That's why the church can say to you that the church was wrong in the Council of Trent when it said that the sun revolves around the earth. Yes, it is in the Council of Trent. because truth is not a territory to be defended, but a good to be shared. The spiritual truths we have in the church are to be shared and understood in light of the physical truths they teach at MIT and Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. For his part, Pope Francis expressed the same perspective in his striking phrase, "Time is greater than space." What matters most is not occupying positions of power or defending cultural truths, but initiating good processes and enabling them to mature. Time is greater than space means, by the way, from what I can see here, is over time we have a deeper understanding of our truth, and that is more important than saying, we are Rome and you will do what we say. Time is greater than space. Always keep that in mind. So it's a powerful statement. We haven't even gotten through the full paragraph yet, but you can see this is a real powerful statement. And this would be something that would be a coffee spit moment over all the centuries, but the people, when you understood them, would say, yes, he's absolutely right. Because when you have someone, and you do have people in our church who are not ordained to do, they may be ordained, but they're not ordained to do this, but they still do it, who will proclaim the truths, will proclaim as truths the science of the 16th century and say you have to believe this. These are the people who are going against the meaning of this paragraph because they're saying we are the church, we know the truth. No. The church is seeking the truth about God, and God is using other channels to help us to understand the truth that we can also see that helps us take those other truths and understand more about God. So the church is seeking to understand the truth about God and essentially all things through God. Harvard University and MIT are helping us to understand the truth of the role of physics and chemistry and biology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Do you understand that? And we take all of that information, we bring it together within the truth of what we believe in the divinely inspired truths given to us in Christ. Pretty powerful stuff. But that was only about, 2 sentences? That's why this is pretty powerful stuff. We're going to be back on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. We'll be right back right after this. Are you feeling overwhelmed, burdened by the challenges of life? Take a moment to find solace in the words of 1 Peter 5.
Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time.
In times of trial, remember the power of humility. Trust in God's timing, for he will lift you up when the time is right.
Cast all your anxiety upon him, because he cares for you.
Release your worries and anxieties unto the Lord, for he cares for you deeply. Find comfort in his loving embrace.
And the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, shall himself perfect, establish, and strengthen you.
These are just a few verses from 1 Peter 5, offering you hope, encouragement, and guidance. Tune into the Bible, the source of everlasting wisdom.
Bible verses based on the American Standard Version.
Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out. Patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. Well, tomorrow we are going to look at the famous, powerful story that happens on the Great Mountain where Elijah is in competition with the prophets of Baal, and the prophets of Baal just happen to work for the most evil woman in the entire Bible. and probably the most evil person in the entire Bible as well, Queen Jezebel. So we're going to be looking at that tomorrow. In the meantime, have yourself a blessed day, and we'll see you then.
Yeah. You know the real is back. Father Carr Chaplain from the city of champions, dropping daily reflections coming straight from the field. The raw truth revealed for the strong-willed. It's the Greatest Act of Defiance podcast with your host Father Carr, a message built to last. The Greatest Act of Defiance podcast. That's right, the Greatest Act of Defiance. Word up. Word up. Word up.
The Catholic teaching in this podcast is reflected and presented as accurately as possible. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Archdiocese of Boston or any other institution.